For over 40 years, Jesuits and Jesuit universities have been emphasizing a faith that does justice as the foundation of all of their educational activities. It's also part of our commitment to form men and women for others as part of our educational programs, students and graduates who will make a difference for good in the world, especially in the lives of the poor and marginalized.
This was the celebration of the 25th anniversary of the martyrdom of 6 Jesuits and 2 co-workers,
which took place in November of 1989 at the University of Central America in El Salvador. And on one evening, the 6 Jesuits who worked there at the university, along with their housekeeper and her daughter, were murdered by a death squad sent to the university by the government of El Salvador in an attempt to silence the university's work on behalf of the poor.
Institutionally, the Jesuit schools in the United States were supporting our sister school, our sister Jesuit school at the UCA in San Salvador.
Our connections as a country through our foreign policy, through our militarism, we have a direct sense of responsibility. And for example, in El Salvador, we sent over $1 million a day during the Civil War to fund the actions of human rights abuses, to fund some of those members of the military who killed Oscar Romero, but especially those who killed the Jesuits at the UCA, Elba, and Salina.
The role of a Jesuit university in that kind of situation is to investigate and tell the truth, to stand up for those who do not have a voice and be their voice. And that's what these 6 Jesuits and the co-workers really did.
Once I started doing some research and then went in for my interview, I figured out that it was something that I was really passionate about and really wanted to do. I started going to classes at Romero House on Friday mornings with Pablo and the other people living in the house, and that's where I learned most of what I needed to know for the trip.
As I learned about their lives and what it meant for them to live their faith, to be contemplatives in action, to seek magis, to almost embody all of these Jesuit characteristics, I just found myself wanting to learn more and understand even more of who they are.
We wanted to be part of this because those events 25 years ago helped Regis become even more dedicated to this faith that does justice and these commitments. It helped us start programs such as our Peace and Justice Studies major, our Romero House program, and many of our service learning projects.
It was important for Regis to be there, both through the central administration and the student presence, for 2 reasons. One, to show solidarity and accompaniment with the most marginalized and the victimized in Central America. The Jesuits and their co-workers in the UCA in San Salvador made a conscious decision to work for the poor and the disenfranchised in their country. That is at the core of every Jesuit mission, and in particular, higher education. Our education in a Jesuit university is not for ourselves. It really is for the other. That's our DNA. That's why we do what we do. It's not that we don't want our own graduates to thrive and do very well. We do. But the whole raison d'etre, the whole reason why we do what we do is to change the world for the better. That's how we teach. It's how we do administration. It's how we think through and pray through our reality in the world. And that's the legacy of Jesuit higher education. So that's one piece of it. Another piece is it is extremely important that the world never forget, and that our students in particular never forget, that every year there are Jesuits and companions of Jesuits who are martyred for the cause of justice.
Walking in solidarity with all these people who had stories about what had happened 25 years before, or the Civil War that had gone on, or the other massacres, and just, you could feel that even if you didn't hear it in their words, which we did hear, and you could see it in their eyes. We're part of this procession that walked through the campus and then down to one of the fields, and at the field they had a reenactment, sort of the events of that night, which was powerful but also a little disturbing. It was hard to watch. We went to the museum and saw the pictures of the aftermath and what it actually all looked like. That was probably the hardest moment of the trip for me.
So it was just them, after we had seen kind of those bright, really full moments of their lives, really their crime scenes. So after the martyrs had been shot down, the military dragged their bodies outside and kind of piled them up. And I think that's one of the things that's come back to me, just the contrast of those two albums, how there was so much life, and then in the other one, just so much, I don't know, just stasis, just everything kind of stopped. And I thought that was hard to fathom, but really important.
I can't say it was the best part of the trip, but it was one of the most impactful, because it definitely opened up my heart to what had happened, the truth of what had happened, and then hearing the stories that everyone else shared throughout the weekend.
It is said that the blood of martyrs is the seed of faith, and that really is the case here.
I think I'm still realizing how much it impacted me. It seems ironic that just 48 hours has totally changed my life. I think it opened my heart to that Jesuit mission, to wanting to be with others and be for others and listen to their stories. In so many instances throughout those 2 days, my heart was broken by what I saw, by what I heard, and yet my heart was also healed by the people. The people there are phenomenal. They love more than any other group of people I've seen, and they give more. They seem to have very little, much less than we have here, and yet they give without thinking. So I think that taught me a lot as well, about just opening my heart and about giving back. And also instilled in me a great desire to be there for others in all aspects of my life, not only by going back to places like El Salvador, but also by being here, by listening to people's stories. I think that was a theme that came out of the trip, that there's a power in just listening.
We got to hang out with Father Fitz for a while, to hear kind of some of his story too, because he was really close with one of the Jesuits who was martyred.
There's another reason, personal reason for me, and it has to do with, I was in graduate school with one of the martyrs, Father Ignacio Martin Barro. I tell you that the most moving moment for me was to go to the chapel in the UCA and see my friend's grave, Ignacio Martin Barro, and just pray right there at his grave and ask him to be a blessing, to petition our God to bless the people of El Salvador and bless the people of the world, bless the Jesuits who are trying to live the faith that does justice. That was very, very important to me, a very personal moment, and spent about a half hour right there at the grave quietly, asking Nacho to intercede for us, gathered in his honor and the honor of all the victims.
We went to this public park back in the city, and it was really beautiful. They had this memorial. It was like a black marble wall modeled after the Vietnam Memorial. And so it had, gosh, like 70,000 names of people who were disappeared or murdered during the El Salvadorian Civil War. One place in particular, there was the name of this woman, and then someone, I don't know, a family member had come through, and under her name they had written on a little like placard that she was pregnant. And so really kind of even though the memorial's great, like revising that history, and that it wasn't just this woman who lost her life, but her child too. So that for me really, it made me think about just the devastation of war and how it's not restricted, you know, to one generation that it happens in, but everything kind of before or after. Just that woman was probably a wife, maybe a mother, someone's daughter, that just kind of like the things ripple out from violence and war.
I just know that it means so much that people are willing to come and to listen to stories or to almost be engaged with this living history, the history of memory, as they say down there. And I think the fact that Regis is committed to not forgetting that part of our Jesuit heritage, that part of our responsibility as citizens of this country, of the U.S., that is something that's really powerful and something that makes me really proud to have participated in choosing to come to Regis for my education.
To be there, just to be a part of that greater Jesuit community. And the more I learned about it, really appreciating what the Jesuits did in response to the death of the martyrs. You know, there were like thousands of other Jesuits volunteering to go down there and take their places. And the people we talked to there, you know, whenever we told them, just like regular people in the streets, just telling them who we were and why we were there, just the kind of reverence that they had for the Jesuits and the kind of work that they do was really important to me. Like I knew the Jesuits were pretty amazing, like whenever I came to Regis, but just being able to see that in kind of a global perspective was really enlightening, and just like I'm just still in awe. I'm like, wow, like these are, like I'm so honored just to be at a Jesuit school because it means so much to so many people. I'm seeing now how my education at Regis can be, I don't know, applied in a wider range of situations. That's why I chose to come to Regis. I knew it was important to be socially conscious. But then seeing like just a really recent and prime example, I think, of why we need more socially minded people, like why empathy is important. A great deal of misfortune and violence and war is directly caused from a lack of empathy and understanding.
That's something that Regis is really about. It's about being in places where there is need and being in solidarity and speaking the truth when others won't speak the truth.
The opportunities that I'm seeking in my life after Regis and jobs that I'm seeking out for the future are all kind of in this line of the same spirit. How do I walk with other people in their reality and in their struggle? How do I also celebrate the joy that is their life and the beauty that they experience? Because I think one of the things that my time in El Salvador and that Salvadorans have taught me is that, or reaffirmed this lesson that I somehow knew before. Everyone is your teacher, and we are all lifelong learners. It doesn't matter the level of education, whether it's doctoral or to second grade. The stories we hold within ourselves are as sacred as the gospel, in the sense of we can hold one another's humanity with the same reverence in the way that we hold the life of Christ or the life of the saints and the martyrs. And I think that if we approach one another as humanity with that kind of sacredness, as well as approach the earth with the sacredness of who she is, then we can create more healing and more reconciliation between one another